Hey guys, welcome to another video. I was just getting ready to write out a list of all of the things that I need to do before the baby comes because I am getting ready to head into my third trimester. And whether it's your first baby, your third baby, or your 15th baby, there's just always a lot of things that need to be done right before the baby comes. So as I was getting ready to sit down and write this list, I figured it would be something that might be helpful to film because sometimes it can be really easy to forget some things that you need to get together beforehand. Now, as pretty much all of you will know, babies don't usually come when they're supposed to come. They can come up to 3 weeks early or 2 weeks late. So really you have a 5-week window at the end where you don't want to be having to rush around during that time and trying to finish up your list because your time may end at any day. And it's often when you least expect it, at least in my experience. So I like to start knocking out my list early in the third trimester so that by the time that 5-week window arrives, I am ready for the baby and I can just do some self-care. I can paint my nails, I can get a haircut, I can take a bath, and I can just kind of take care of me during those last few weeks or days, depending on what the baby decides. Now, if this is your third, fourth, 15th baby, the things at the beginning of the video will probably be pretty obvious to you, and you may want to skip over those. So I will put a timestamp in the description down below, and you can just move on ahead to some of the things that I think will be less obvious, but will really make your life easier once the baby comes. But for those of you who this is your first baby or maybe even your second, the entire video could be pretty helpful for you. So I suggest that you watch the entire thing from start to finish. So let's go ahead and get into the list. The first thing that I recommend you do when you are nearing that third trimester point is finalize your baby registry. A lot of people do baby showers, whether it's churches, family, or friends, in that third trimester. And it's just nice to have that already figured out and ready to go. That way you aren't rushing to get it finalized right before the shower. Now, this video is not going to be about what you should or should not have on your baby registry, but I am going to do a video about that in the future, so be sure to stay tuned for that. If you would like to get your hands on my minimalist baby registry checklist though, go ahead and check out the description down below and you can print that off very easily and get started filling out your registry whenever you would like. The only thing I will say about the registry on this video is less is more. A lot of people try to put just about everything in the kitchen sink on their registry, and the logic is, well, if somebody wants to buy it for me, great. But the problem is that most people, when they are purchasing a gift, will get what is most exciting or interesting and not necessarily what is the most practical. So what you really want to do is put those practical items on your registry. And then yes, if they all get purchased and you need to add more, add some of those jazzy items to your list. But I wouldn't worry about putting the more exciting but less functional items on there from the start. Put the things that you know you will need and use, and you will be very thankful that you did because you will need to purchase much less for yourself if you can get those things for your shower. Now, even if you aren't having a baby shower, I still recommend putting together a registry. And I am actually going to write this on my list right now because even if you aren't having a shower, Amazon offers a clearing discount when your baby is due, where you can buy everything that is still left on your registry for a discounted price. So we did this with our second daughter. We didn't have any baby showers for her, but we still created the registry. And then around the time that she was born, we were able to purchase everything we needed for less than if we had just bought it off of Amazon. So I highly recommend using an Amazon gift registry if you are putting one together online. And I can put a link to the Amazon gift registries in the description down below as well if you aren't quite sure how to do that, but it is very simple to use. And we have really enjoyed that for all 3 of our children. So I am going to write this as the first item on my list to finalize the registry for this baby. Another thing you will want to do as you're nearing your third trimester is you will want to choose a pediatrician. And even if this isn't your first baby, you will want to get in touch with your current pediatrician and make sure that they will accept your new baby as a patient when it arrives. Most offices just like a heads up. You usually don't have to do anything at all other than just call them, let them know you're expecting and when, and then they say, just let me know when the baby arrives and we can get you an appointment. Now, if this is your first baby and you're not sure how to choose a pediatrician, you can often do get to know you visits. So when I was looking for a pediatrician the first time, I went around to several pediatricians that friends recommended, and I kind of interviewed them. I asked their philosophy on different things. I asked how they felt about us being plant-based because I didn't want to be arguing with my pediatrician all the time about what I should feed my children. And it can be really helpful to discuss some of those things ahead of time and make sure that they are comfortable having your family as patients. And it also helps you make sure that you are comfortable having them as a doctor. So if this is your first child, I recommend interviewing at least 5 different pediatricians. And again, if you don't know where to start with which pediatricians to interview, talk to your friends, see if they recommend their pediatrician or if they know of any that might be a good fit for your family. So that's going to be the next item on my list because I have not done this yet. The third thing that I recommend doing is something that I would not have thought of before I had my first baby. And that is also contacting a lactation consultant or several. Again, you can interview lactation consultants as well and see what their cost is, see if they'd be a good fit for your family. Some will come to your home, some will come to the hospital, or some will do phone consultations. And you want to know what is expected, what their cost covers, do they take insurance, all of those types of things. And you want to do these things before your baby actually arrives. Breastfeeding was not something that I was concerned at all about the first time around because I figured people have been doing this for thousands of years. How hard can it be? Well, both of my children so far have had severe lip and tongue ties, which made breastfeeding very difficult for them, very painful for me, and it was just a really challenging time. And we ended up needing to find a lactation consultant after they were already born. Now, the reason a lactation consultant is so important is if your child does have any lip or tongue ties or anything like that, at least in our area, you have to have a lactation consultant look at them, say that they indeed do have these conditions before any pediatricians will revise it. And every day, every hour that goes by just makes it more challenging for once the revision takes place for you to be able to actually breastfeed. So I recommend just touching base with some lactation consultants ahead of time, just in case you need something like that. Another thing lactation consultants are good at is just helping you with breastfeeding. And again, I really didn't think I was going to need this. I figured it'd be just a natural thing. And I think in some cultures it is. But in most of those cultures where it's natural, the girls grow up seeing their moms, their aunts, everybody else around them in the village breastfeed openly. And in our culture in the United States, that is not something that we see a lot, and we don't really know how to do it. At least I didn't. So I needed a lot of help in this area. So this is actually something I'm adding to my list this time as well, because yes, I have used the same person both times before and I liked her, but she was quite expensive. And we have new insurance now, and I'm not sure if insurance will help cover the cost or not. So I just need to do some looking around and have somebody lined up for when this baby comes, because I'm thinking there's a good chance that this baby will need a lip and tongue tie revision as well. And I just want to be prepared for that if it does happen. Now, lactation consultants is an excellent segue into the next thing that we need to talk about, and that is breast pumps. Most often, insurance will cover a breast pump for each child that you have. But you will want to call your insurance and make sure that they cover a breast pump, figure out which breast pumps they cover, and how do you get reimbursed if you choose to buy a breast pump from some other way. For example, I actually bought my first breast pump through the insurance company, so that was really easy. But the second one, I believe I bought on Amazon, and then the insurance company reimbursed me. Like I said, our insurance has changed since we had our last baby. So I just need to call our insurance company and figure out what the protocol is for getting your next breast pump. And I am really interested to see if they cover some of those breast pumps that you can actually wear all the time. I've seen some on commercials recently on YouTube, and I am so excited about that. I really hope I can get one of those, because if I have the same breastfeeding issues that I had last time, that would be such a helpful way to make sure that I can pump and still give my baby breast milk even if I'm not able to breastfeed. Now, I am just gonna throw out there, this is something else I didn't think I was going to need, because again, people have been doing this for hundreds of years. How hard can it be? But it is so helpful to have a breast pump in case you do have latch issues, or in case your baby isn't able to latch. My second baby was not able to latch the first 24 hours because her lip and tongue tie were so severe. And we tried all the tricks to get her to do that, including having the lactation consultant come, and we just weren't able to get her to latch. But since I had a pump, I was still able to give her breast milk at that time. Now with my second daughter, we ended up running into a whole bunch of other issues with breastfeeding that I won't go into in this video. But suffice it to say, I ended up only being able to give her breast milk for a couple of months. And that was really devastating for me at the time, because I just felt like this shouldn't be this hard and everyone can do this, right? This is not something that's complicated. It should just be natural. But I just wanted to say that if for some reason your baby or you are not able to breastfeed, it's much better to give them food than it is to worry about just giving them breast milk. And another thing we're told a lot when it comes to breastfeeding that really contributes to the guilt if you can't is breastfeeding is what bonds you to your baby. So I just wanted to say, for any of you who might be concerned about that, who have issues with breastfeeding, it's not the only thing that bonds you with your baby. And if anything, my second baby is much more bonded to me than my first was, who I breastfed for much, much longer. And I don't know if it's just personality or if it's because I actually did a lot of other things to bond my second baby to me. I made sure to do a lot of skin-to-skin time. I would carry her in the carrier. I would take a bath and have her in the bath with me. And I just did a lot of intentional things to develop that bonding, since I knew we weren't getting it from breastfeeding. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm obviously a huge fan of breastfeeding, and if it works for you, that is absolutely amazing. But I also know for me, my body is not good at breastfeeding, and so far my children have not been either. And I've had to come to terms with the fact that that's okay. It doesn't make me a bad mom. I'm really good at other things. This is just not one of them. And I think in our culture, we hear so often one side of this issue saying you have to breastfeed your baby. It'll make their IQ higher and they will be bonded better to you and all of these things. But your baby can be just fine also if they are fed formula or anything like that. So just be open to options. And I know if somebody had told me this beforehand, I probably would have thought, oh, whatever, it's gonna work just fine for me. But I just wanted to put it out there in case any of you have issues with it. Don't feel bad if you need to look at other options for feeding your child. My goal this time is to pump and to get as much milk as I can that way. And I will try breastfeeding, but if it's anything like it was last time, I probably am not going to do it, because it was just so incredibly painful and so frustrating for them and frustrating for me. And I wasn't a good mom when I was trying to breastfeed because I was so stressed out all the time. So my goal this time is just to pump, hopefully get one of those wearable pumps, because those look really amazing. But if at the end of the day it just doesn't work for my body or for theirs, it's okay. And everyone will be okay if we have to do formula instead. And breast pumps is an excellent segue into the next thing that we need to talk about, and that is gathering your postpartum supplies. Nothing that anyone said could have prepared me for everything that you need after you have a baby, and not just for the baby, but for you. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of everything that you need for postpartum, because there are a lot of fantastic videos and channels that are all about that kind of thing. I will find some and link those in the description down below, but that's just not really what my channel is about. And I'm also not a fantastic resource for this because everyone is so different. I have friends who hardly needed anything afterwards, and then there was me who needed just about everything. So check out some of those videos. I will put some in the description down below. There are a lot that are done by lactation consultants, midwives, nurses, things like that, people who actually know exactly what you need. But you definitely want to have that stuff figured out ahead of time, purchased at your house, because you just aren't going to want to run around right after a baby is born. So I am going to put that on my list as well to gather up my postpartum supplies. The only other thing I will say about the postpartum supplies before we move on is err on the side of too much instead of too little, because like I said, you're not going to feel like running around, going to the grocery stores and getting anything that you need once the baby is here. So it's better to just have more than you need ahead of time. You can always use those things for any future babies or pass them on to any friends who are having babies. I know in our group of friends, there has been a lot of passing around of postpartum supplies from people who didn't really need as much as they thought they did to the people who needed a lot more than they thought they did. And trust me, it may seem awkward before you have your first baby to talk about things like that, but after you have your first baby, nobody cares. Everyone knows it's normal, it's not pretty, and it's just part of life. And yeah, find people who are willing to share if they had extra, or if you have extra, give it to another friend who is expecting a baby, and it will be very much appreciated, I promise. Now, the next thing on our list is for everyone, because whether this is your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 15th baby, you are going to want some help. And again, I didn't believe people about this before I had my first baby. I figured I'm young, I'm healthy, how hard can this be? People have been doing this for thousands of years. But trust me, your hormones are going crazy, your body is a mess, your baby is crying, and it's just really nice to have a helping hand or even just a friendly face to tell you this is all okay and it will get better. But what I recommend doing is figuring out if anyone is willing to help. You will often have people either at church or family or friends say, "Let me know if you need anything after the baby is born." When they say that, write down their name. And then when you need help, call them or text them and ask for help. It can be really hard to ask for help, but trust me, it is so much better than trying to figure everything out on your own. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that you are reaching out to people who are actually helpers. There are two types of people who will say that they want to help you when the baby is born, and those types of people I classify as helpers and visitors. Now, visitors like to come and they like to hold your baby while you get up and do other things. And helpers like to come and do things like bring you meals, vacuum your floor for you, maybe take your other kids to the park so you can have 5 minutes of peace and quiet, maybe hold your baby while you go take a nap, or things that are actually helpful, and when they leave, you will have a little bit more energy than you did before they came. I would be very careful to not have the visitors over in excess before the baby is 6 to 8 weeks old. For me, that is the amount of time it took for my body to recover, for my hormones to recover, and for life to kind of form a sense of normalcy, or at least new normalcy, with this new person in your family. Now, helpers can come at any time, but visitors need to wait until you are ready to entertain visitors. So put a little list in your phone, try to figure out, if this is your first baby, try to figure out which list people belong on if they say they want to help. If it's your second or third baby, you already know. But reach out to those people who are truly helpers and let them know if you need help, because most people are more than happy to come and help a new mom if they know you want it. Now, like I said here, I don't have to add this to my list because I'm very blessed to have a mom who comes and really does everything for me right after I have a baby. So I know very well already who my helpers and my visitors are, and we just ask that people who want to come and visit and see the baby either come when I have a helper here, like my husband, or come after the time when I know that I will be able to entertain. Now, it may feel awkward to tell some people that they need to wait a little longer before they can come, but I can tell you from experience, it is way better on your marriage, on your mental health, if you can do that ahead of time and let people know you are welcome to come, but here's the time when you can come, because right now we are adjusting to this new life. Or, yes, you are welcome to stop by. Could you bring something when you come? Sometimes it's just a matter of telling even visitors that you need some help, and then they can help a little bit as well. So don't be afraid of stepping on people's toes, because really the most important thing for you right now is helping you and your family adjust to this new baby. Now, the next thing that you'll want to do, no matter which baby this is for you, is pack your bags. This is also something you will want to do no matter which type of birth you are having. If you are having a hospital birth, a birth center birth, or a home birth. I've mentioned before that we do home births, but I still pack a bag for myself, my husband, the baby, and my other children, because birth is unpredictable, and it is just much better to have those bags packed, ready to go, in the vehicle that you would be using if you were transferring, than it is to be running around the house scrambling at the last minute. My midwives, the first time I was pregnant, told me, it's really interesting. It seems that people who are prepared for a transfer don't typically need to, but just like Murphy's Law, whenever somebody thinks, I'm not gonna have to transfer, they do, and then they're running around trying to figure out what needs to go in the hospital bag, what are they taking, what are they not taking. So they said it's just much better to have your bags packed, ready to go, and never use them than it is to not have your bags packed and need them. So this is something that I am going to add to my list now as well, because I still need to do this. The next thing you're going to want to do, again, no matter which baby this is for you, is you will want to look at your budget, because it may seem like, oh, I have 3 months off. That's plenty of time to figure out what we're going to do for daycare or if I'm going to stay home or not. But it goes by so quickly, and those 3 months are busy when you are adjusting to a new little baby in your family. So I highly recommend looking at your budget now and figuring out if any adjustments need to be made. Are you going to be able to afford daycare? Are you going to be able to afford to stay home after your baby is born if that's what you want to do? No matter what your family chooses to do, it is going to cause a financial change in your family. If you are keeping 2 incomes, you are still going to be having an extra expense going out if you will be paying for daycare. And if one of you is going to stay home, well, you will be losing an income. So no matter what you are choosing to do with childcare, it's just a good idea to start thinking about that now instead of later. And I am planning on putting together more videos that will help you with figuring out the budgeting. But for now, just start looking at it and figuring out anything that you can to make your budget a little more forgiving when the baby comes. The next thing that I highly recommend doing in this 3rd trimester is getting any routines in place that you don't already have. Because once the baby comes, you are not going to have the mental or physical energy to start anything new. But if something is already a routine, it is much easier to keep that going. Or it's easier to pick it up again if you do have to take a couple weeks off when you're figuring everything out, if it is already an established routine. So if you already know that your home needs some routines, whether it's laundry routines, kitchen cleaning routines, or anything else, check out my How to Easily Manage Your Home series that I did on YouTube, and I will put the links to the videos in the cards and in the description down below, and you can check those videos out because I walk you through the entire process for how to essentially set up your home on autopilot. So it kind of feels like it's running itself by the time you are done setting up these routines. And it might be tempting to say, oh, I will figure that out after the baby is born, but trust me, it's much easier to do these things before the baby is born. And then it will be easier to just continue it on, as opposed to having a new baby, having lack of sleep, being all hormonal and everything else that happens after a baby is born. It's just much easier to get it figured out ahead of time and continue it on than it is to be doing it at the time when the baby is born. The next thing that you'll want to do in the 2nd, 3rd trimester time is plan out your meals. Now, I just finished up a How to Easily Plan Your Meals series, and I will link that in the cards and in the description as well. But You don't necessarily have to do it as long term as I do. I know a lot of you know that I plan out my entire year of meals in one evening. You don't have to do that if that sounds too crazy to you. But I would really recommend planning out at least 6 to 8 weeks of meals after the baby is born, because you're not gonna have a ton of energy to figure out what you want to eat or to cook during that time. So plan out some really easy meals during that time so that you can still feed your family something healthy, but don't worry about doing anything too elaborate, especially if you don't have a lot of help. Something else that is really great to do that I'm going to write on my list is put together some freezer meals. And you can do as many or as few as your freezer will allow. But I'm not going to do a ton of them because I do have some help, but it's always good to have when you have a new baby around for those days when the baby has been crying all day and you've been spit up on all day and you just don't feel like cooking at the end of the day. You can pull out a freezer meal and still have something that you can feed your family, and you won't be having to spend the extra money going out to eat on those nights. So I'm going to write that down on my list, and I recommend that you do too. For your freezer meals, and if you haven't already done your meal plan, go ahead and write that on your list as well. The next thing that you'll want to do is any projects, any house projects, any decluttering projects that you have been putting off and meaning to do for a really long time. Do not put this off until after the baby's born and you're on maternity or paternity leave, because trust me, you're not going to feel like doing anything extra at that time when you're sleep deprived and you have another human to take care of. So I am actually going to be putting some decluttering projects down on my list. I don't have to declutter my entire house, but I do need to declutter a few key areas. One of them is my office area, because when Ross first started working from home, we thought it was going to be for 2 weeks and we figured he would go back to work. It's been almost 2 years now, and he is still working from home and will most likely be doing so indefinitely. So with a lot of different adjustments, we have now figured out where he is going to work and where I am going to work. And my office area has kind of just been the catch-all, and we haven't really done any organizing with it just because we didn't know where everyone was going to land, and we didn't want to be unpacking and repacking things all of the time. So now that we know that, I really want to get that done before the baby comes, because it has been driving me nuts. And I know that I will have less time to work when the baby comes, and I will be much more effective if I can do so in a clean area. So my office is going to get decluttered, and I will do a video for you guys if you want to watch that. The medicine cabinet is going to get decluttered because, as you guys probably know, medicine cabinets just seem to get messy. And again, it's been driving me nuts for a little while, so I want to get that decluttered before the baby comes. And then my bathroom, actually, I need to just go through and organize some things so that it won't drive me nuts after the baby is here and I'm spending a lot more time in my room and bathroom. And I love the way most of my house feels with how it's decluttered, and I don't feel that way with those 3 areas. So my goal is to get all 3 of those decluttered, organized, and kind of taken care of before the baby arrives. So I'm going to write those 3 things on my list, and you don't have to do decluttering items if you don't want to. I just know for me, I feel much better when my house is organized, tidy, decluttered, but the projects that you may want to do may be totally different. Another thing I do need to put on here is I need to just order a few things for the decluttering. I need to order some little containers for the drawers and for the medicine cabinet. And I also need to order some new pens and just some little things that, again, I've been putting off, and I just need to sit down and make that purchase. So I'm gonna go write those things down on my list, write down anything that you have that you need to get done before the baby comes as well. And then the last thing that you will want to do, and this applies only to people who it's not their first baby, so if this is your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 15th baby, you will want to prepare your other children for the baby's coming well ahead of time. And this is going to mean different things for different age groups. But for our kids, they are 6.5 and 3.5 now, and they are going to be sharing a room when the baby comes. So we decided, as soon as we told them pretty much, to go ahead and move them into the same room. And oh, I'm so glad we did that, because it has been a struggle for them to figure out how to share a room. There's been a lot more coming out at night and saying, oh, they're making noise and I can't sleep. They're moving around too much because it's a bunk bed. And it's been good for them to have this extra time to adjust instead of us waiting until the baby was almost here and then doing it. And now they're adjusting to having a new baby in the house and sharing a room. And I just think it's a really good idea to do things earlier than later. Another thing we have been working on with our kids is getting them really comfortable with their checklists. And I talk about the checklists in the video where I talk about getting your family involved with helping out with routines. And the morning checklists for our kids are doing their chores, making their beds, getting dressed, putting pajamas away, things like that. And it's been, again, a work in progress, getting them really comfortable with doing their checklists. But just in the last couple weeks, it has become so much more of a habit. They aren't resisting as much anymore because they know it's just expected. And again, I'm really, really glad we didn't wait until the baby was already here to implement some of these changes, because it's just made everything a lot easier. Once the baby comes, I know my 6.5-year-old will be fully comfortable doing her checklist by herself. And the 3.5-year-old will still need some help because she can't read the checklist, but she will be able to bring me the checklist and then go do the items on it pretty much by herself. So that will make my life a lot easier once the baby is here, as opposed to me having to be on them every day about, did you make your bed? Did you do your pajamas? Did you put this away? Did you unload the dishwasher? Things like that. It's just already becoming a habit. So I know with another 12 weeks, 14 weeks, 16 weeks, who knows? Babies can come whenever they want. They will have plenty of practice with this, and it will make my life a lot easier than if I had not done this. So I highly recommend doing that if your kids are old enough. If your kids are pretty little though, sometimes it's just about talking to them about the baby coming and having a plan for when the baby actually does come. When my second daughter was born, my oldest was almost 3, and we got her a little dolly carrier for herself because I knew I would be wearing my second daughter in the baby carrier, and she loved that thing. It made her feel so important to put her dolly in her carrier when we would go to the store or on a walk or on a hike or anything. She felt like she was being like me and was just so excited to be a little mommy because that's what mommy was doing. And something that was really simple, I think my sister had gotten that for her for Christmas, made all the difference in her adjusting to her sibling and not wanting to feel like she was the baby, because she was now a big girl and she wanted to carry her dolly around too. Another thing that I recommend doing if your kids are really young is just figuring out some activities that you can do while you are nursing or feeding the baby or doing whatever you need to be doing. So one thing, again, I did with my first daughter was when I was nursing or feeding the baby with a bottle, whatever I was doing at the time, kind of went back and forth some days, I would read to her. And she came to really like that time. Instead of resenting it that I was always telling her, no, I can't play with you right now, she would just go and get a pile of books and we would sit there and read books together over and over until I was done with the baby. And she came to really like that time. Instead of resenting that I couldn't run around with her, she would just get a pile of books and we would just read over and over again all of these stories while I was busy and I couldn't really be up and around doing something with her. So I just, recommend getting some ideas, making sure that you have a plan in place for any older children that you have. Another thing we are doing this time, in addition to the chore checklist, is we are also going to get them some more Your Story hours. They love those. They are old radio programs that have been recorded, and we got them a little speaker for their room. So if the baby's fussy and I'm busy and just don't have the time to be able to sit down and read with them at the moment, they can go up in their room and actually turn their stories on by themselves. So they have already been using that a lot. And like I said, I recommend whatever you are going to do, get it ahead of time so that they can kind of get adjusted to anything new that they need to before the baby arrives. And I think that helps a lot with not making them feel resentful to the baby and just welcoming the baby into the family when the time comes. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you are getting ready for a baby in your house, let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions at all. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and share it with anyone who you think might find it useful as well. As always, I'm Kassy with makingtimeforgiggles.com, and I make videos all about simplifying mom life, from routines to meal planning to budgeting and decluttering. So if you are into that sort of thing and have not yet subscribed, please do so down below, because I would love to see you on the next video.